Welcome to Canvas Projects, a virtual program offering from the Pflugerville Public Library. I'm Meg Miller, an Adult Services Librarian, here with another fun project geared to ages 12 and up for you to complete. Those who registered through the library calendar can pick up their material supply kits, and for everyone else watching, we hope you give these techniques a try. This month's project is a desert sunset canvas, so let's start with a look at the supplies being provided. So in our envelopes this month, you are getting just a few things, because that's all we'll need for this project. You are getting an 8x8 square canvas. It may say canvas panel. That was just a mistake. I didn't remove the panel from when I was creating it. It is a standard canvas. Then we're going to have our paint pots here, our 6 colors, and I believe this is a 1/2-inch flat brush for this, since it's a little bit more of a wide swath. We gave a little bit bigger of a brush. So our colors for this month, we have the phthalo blue that we've been working with. We have the Sargent Spectral Red. Then we've got just a Shuttle Art orange for bright orange. And then I didn't go with the true yellow. I went with this tangerine. It's still got a bit of that orange to it, but it is a lot lighter. And then we have our Sargent Acrylic Black, Ivory Black, excuse me. And finally, just an apple barreled white for some final details as we go through. So you may want to cover your workspace. If you think you might get paint on, you will very likely get paint on your hands. I already have a little bit of that tangerine on my thumb. In addition to the kit, if you've done some of our projects before, you may have some extra brushes and want to pull out some extra brushes for the other colors. If not, you can get some water and some paper towels to clean off your brush in between colors. Now you have kind of to start with the very bottom, I'd say maybe 1 inch of the canvas. We don't need to worry too much about, because we are going to cover that with black paint later. You can go all the way down with your kind of sunset gradient, but you don't really have to. So I am going to start with actually my lighter color here towards the bottom. So I've got my paint in here. I'm just going to grab some and just give myself that light orange right down here on the bottom. I've got that good lighter tangerine. And then I am generally I would clean the brush, but since I'm going kind of lighter to darker, I'm going to go ahead for purposes of the video and just grab some of this orange paint and bring that in here. Just doing that dry brush across to get some of that darker orange in. I may need to grab a little more, come down in here, start blending those colors up. For my sunset, my sun's pretty well set, so I don't want a ton of that tangerine brightness right down there. So I'm kind of coming over it and getting that little bit of a gradient as I go up. Alright, so we've got our oranges there, our tangerine. I'm also going in a bit of a arc, kind of that horizon line not being fully straight across. Now, I am going to go ahead and continue again. Let's just clean the brush between this color so we can see kind of the difference. So I'm not going to have much, if any, of that orange paint, but I will have a little bit of moisture to my brush. So I'm going to grab our red, start a little bit above, so I've got some of that true reddish in there. And then I'm going to come down into my orange, get some of that as I come across. Bring some of that depth of the red down into that orange. Not all the way down into the tangerine, just kind of right there at that orange. And I'm leaving probably almost 1/3 of the canvas space at the top, so 2.5, maybe 3 inches at the most, because as I said, my sunset's pretty well set, so that top of my canvas is going to be that dark blue. So for this part, I am going to get a different brush. I'm going to leave that little bit of red on this guy as I come back to it, because now we're going to open that phthalo blue. And I'm going to grab a bunch of this blue. Now this is the one I'm going to need most of for my particular project. I may may not have refilled my paint pot from making my example, so I will likely have to get a little bit more paint. Your paint pot should be fairly full. Only the white, since we're just doing a little bit of detail, that one isn't very full. All right, so I'm getting this good and dark blue up here at the top, and then I'm gonna come down to my red and start getting in there. Probably went a little slow getting to this, so we've got that real dark kind of, and this one I'm very much getting my curve to. So I'm not pulling very much red up into the blue because it was fairly well dry. I'm mostly just coming kind of over it. Just make sure I get good coverage here. There we go. Nice. And then I can come with this red brush and bring a little bit more of that red, that lighter up into, there we go. Maybe even a hint, and I'm going to grab from the lid of my paint pot, a little bit of that light up in there. A little reflection maybe up into my dark blue. Now this phthalo blue, you may want to come back after you do a first pass because I would say that's actually still pretty light. Just going to straight brush across to really make sure I don't have any puddles of that paint anywhere. Make sure any of the areas that might be still showing the white of the canvas underneath get covered. All right, so this is our background. Let's go ahead and clean these off. I am going to need at least one of them here for my black, and maybe this one I'll use. Excellent. Get my brushes basically cleaned. So really your best option is going to be to kind of give this some time to dry so that it is not super tacky to the touch, because we are going to be painting over, especially the bottom color, so we don't want it to kind of mix in with our paint. So here's one I painted just a little bit ago. It's had some time to dry, maybe 20 minutes, maybe about 25. So now I am ready to come in with my black. Now, our library is in Central Texas. There's not a lot of saguaros near us, but I do have family in the Arizona area, and so I love the silhouette of the saguaros in the desert at night. So that's kind of where this idea came from. But if you would prefer to do a mountain range, some hills, even like a neighborhood scene, so houses, just kind of this shape, as almost as if we're looking out into the sunset, you could definitely do that for your project. I'm going to go ahead and stick with my saguaros. I like also that they are a fairly straightforward shape, so it's a little easier for me personally to paint them. So I'm just giving myself some black foreground, I guess it would be here. We're going to have a little bit of an up curve this way, and then here might be a mountain in the background. So there is, that covers where I didn't paint down to. Let me give this a little bit more up, mountainy shape. Maybe a little more mountain right there, off in the distance. A little more. I like that little mountain range. And I'm just kind of the flat of my brush going sideways a little bit to give me that one side, and then flipping to do the other. So there's some mountains in our background. Now this is a fairly large brush. If I get just some paint at the very edge of my brush, the swirl is a very easy shape to do, so I'm just kind of laying that straight down. Give myself the little arm. And with this I'm curving a little from the edge. Just taking the corner of my brush to draw that up there. Do some smaller little guys who may be farther away. We've got some some little guys. They don't have arms yet off there in the background, although there could be other plants. And then over here, I'm going to give us kind of one big silhouette. There we go. There. That's gorgeous. Maybe another one over here. Got those multiple arms. Maybe this guy's arm does a little sideways hustle, so he looks like he's dancing there. Amazing. Give this guy a little bit more. So he's very obviously not a just a mountain off in the distance. And just really covering that silhouette shape. So something as simple as that. This is a really beautiful sunset in the darkness. We've got these, all of our landscape shadowed in the dark of the black, lightened. We could do some little birds. Maybe they're bats. We are Central Texas. We've got a lot of really great bat colonies around us. Just the smallest hint. I'm just really, again, using that corner of the brush. So, and then you have one more color. You could use the tail end of this brush if you've got access to smaller brushes, a skewer, a toothpick, something along those lines. That'll be better than the large brush for adding that little bit of white to give us some of our stars. So I'm just taking the smallest amount on the end of my brush, and I'm just dabbing lightly, sometimes a little bit more, as our stars are starting to come out in the night sky. Even some down here in that, where that red kind of started. So I'm saying this is a moonless night. If you would like to take on adding a moon, you definitely can. Now this acrylic is fairly heavy bodied, so it's not going to be very good to do kind of that splatter technique. You're not going to have a ton come off the brush. You could water some down and try that and get a little bit more of kind of that splattery star look. Now I did, when I splattered, I got some white down here. So I'm going to come back with my black paint and cover that right up. Just blend that right in. Acrylic is pretty fast drying, so I don't have to worry too much. There we go. Amazing. And there is our desert sunset painting. Oh, look at, I can see my little white corner. It's gonna bother me. Coming back. You could paint the edges. That would be a personal preference for your project. And as always, we would love to see what you've done for your Canvas projects, and we look forward to next month. Thanks for watching.